Welcome to the Inside the Sales Playbook show, where on each and every episode, we dive into the actual sales processes, plays, and strategies working for sales teams today. No high-level overview, we get into the actual weeds of what some of the fastest growing and most successful sales teams are doing today to drive revenue and grow their businesses. And we've got two sponsors. Inside the Sales Playbook is sponsored by SalesKit. SalesKit takes the guesswork out of scaling your sales knowledge all on one great platform. No longer do you have to have your sales knowledge spread out on Google Drives and on Dropbox and on various other files and folders and saved locally on your own computer. SalesKit makes it easier than ever for your team to access the sales knowledge that actually works. You can sign up for a free trial at getsaleskit.com. And buy my book, Raise Your Standards, the definitive guide to building seven-figure sales. You can get a copy of this book to help grow your sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a sales contributor at getsaleskit.com/book. Let's get into the show. And I'm your host, Mark Evans, and today I am really excited. Mr. Jimmy Kim of SendLane is going to be joining me. I first heard about Jimmy and his story on Nathan Latka's podcast just a couple of weeks ago. I was so impressed, and I know you will be too, about his founder's story, and especially the trials, the tribulations, the successes, and more importantly, the failures of growing a sales team and having to get back into that sales role. So listeners, I know you're going to be really excited to listen to this episode. So Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Well, Jimmy's broadcasting live from beautiful San Diego, California. And Jimmy, how about you give the listeners just a little bit of context? What is SendLane and how do you help your clients achieve their mission?
Absolutely. So SendLane on the top level and the easiest, a simple level is we're email marketing for e-commerce. And I know it's a broad, a big statement, but what we do as a product is we are behavioral based and data driven. We allow growing SMBs and mid-market companies in e-commerce to be able to take a data driven and behavioral based approach to really be able to communicate to their customers, nurture their leads, and of course, recover their abandoned carts. As a primary channel for most e-commerce companies, we have direct ROI attribution. So the coolest thing about our platform is you know exactly how much everything is making you and what your efforts you're putting out is actually returning to you in actual dollar and cents.
Yes, I love that. I think that that's what defines really good organizations from great organizations is when they can dive deep into those numbers and know exactly where every dollar is going at any given time. So if you're in the e-commerce platform and you're looking at this, you definitely got to check out SendLane. But Jimmy, how about you walk us through, man, of all the things you could have done, man, why did you choose entrepreneurship and sales and this path that you're currently on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually, SendLane, the story, and I'll tell you, I'll go twofold with it. Entrepreneurship, I guess I'll start with that actually is a better way to segue into it. This is my third business, so it's not my first business myself, right? Wow. So I've been a serial entrepreneur for a little bit, successful businesses that I've exited on, both of them as well too, that we've grown and exited. But I come from a sales background as well too. So if we go way back in the day, I'm talking back early 2000s.
Yeah,
I was a car sales guy.
No way.
That's where I learned how to sell cars and start to sell anything, right? If you can sell a car, in my opinion, it's the hardest thing to sell because you get the person and then you've got that time to build rapport, show them a product, and actually get them to pull out their wallet for a very big investment and a long-term commitment as well too.
With a ton of competition.
Exactly.
No doubt. What brand did you rep?
I started off selling Mitsubishi Isuzu when I first started. And I've sold everything from Mitsubishi Isuzu, Ford, GMCs to Volkswagens to Saturns. I mean, that was my last gig as a general manager of the car biz before I left that career. But I was a general manager for multiple Saturn stores and, got to really experience what that was. And then everything for me, and what was interesting is like a lot of my life changes happened through all the recessions per se. So my first recession, the dot-com bubble, I was coming out of college or was trying to come out of college as a computer science major, ended up pivoting completely, ended up not finishing school actually, to be honest. And then went into the car business world trying to figure out what I wanted to do just because knowing coming out back in 2000 in car and computer science, you would have came out with a $40,000 a year job. And that just wasn't ambitious enough for me. And I wanted to go find something else. And so, that's kind of how it led into cars and sales. And I wouldn't have thought myself that I was going to spend as many years in the sales world, in the car sales world. But rode the ladder really fast, and I was making a lot of money when I was pretty young, so it helped me just kind of stay there. And when you're younger, money obviously drives you. But when the second recession happened with the General Motors, with the auto world kind of disrupting, General Motors cut Saturn, and that was kind of my next indication to make the next pivot. And that's kind of how I got into entrepreneurship and doing it now. My entrepreneurship world kind of comes up to way back in the day. I was always very much about the entrepreneur, selling, shoveling snow, selling lemonade, whatever, anything I could do to make a buck. I had my own little thing in college of my own little side business hustle that I kind of find in a niche world as well too. So, I've been around selling and always wanting to drive, but I think what drives me now and today as entrepreneurship mindset changes from money to impact is that I look at how I'm leaving an impact and marking the world and how I'm changing things. And so, things have changed in my mind as well too. But that all storylines into SendLane in the way that we started this platform. And I say platform because we literally built SendLane to solve our own problems. And I'm talking about myself and other founders. We didn't actually think about, we're going to go build some big business around it. We said, we'll do that. And then where in 2015, we opened the doors, but we opened them only because we had such demand from people. And that's kind of why we did it. We said, well, we'll stop paying for building this out of our pocket and let other people start paying. And that's kind of when the business started. But, our story really started in probably August 2017, roughly. That was like a big milestone life change for me. My first daughter was born. I exited my other two companies. Like I did all the things that you do on the biggest milestone of my first kid to go to kind of shift and pivot my entrepreneur journey because I wanted to spend more time with my kid. I wanted to be around more often and not be tied up in the multiple businesses that I was running. So that's kind of SendLane's story and how that all kind of came together a little bit.
That is awesome. That is a lot to keep track of, but I really love that. And you mentioned before how you have exited out of 2 successful companies as well. I know SendLane is growing like crazy. Could you give us just a little hint of what levels SendLane is experiencing from a growth perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. We're currently on track to grow at over 100% year over year right now. Wow. And what the cool thing for me that I'm really proud of is not that we're growing that fast, but we've done it profitably and the entire time as well too. So now I don't say profitable like I'm going to go out and buy everyone Teslas. I'm talking about we're all going to get great hamburgers at the end of the day. But that's to me like the best type of growth where you can just maintain that line of profitability while being able to add headcount, while being able to add revenue, while being able to add new things into the company as well too. So it took us a while to get here, but late 2019 into early 2020, we started to kind of really feel it. And then it just kind of accelerated this year as well too. So we're projecting to grow a little bit over 100% this year and hopefully continue that path next year as well too and stay on that line of profitability as close as I can the entire time.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Well, let me follow up with this question then. So what do you think, Jimmy, makes a really good leader when it comes to growing companies like this? I got to imagine your 2 other companies that you exited grew very fast. SendLane is growing very, very fast. That's not done by accident. So what do you think, Jimmy, makes a really good leader when it comes to growing companies?
Well, number one and foremost is hiring really smart people, smarter people than yourself. That's always number one rule in my book. And then the second rule is having actually really good defined processes and procedures after, things are done. I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over my business life is things are never great as far as process. Things are never great in a business until you can really just define a process and repeatable process in everything you're doing, right? So everything needs to become repeatable in order to scale. That's the biggest thing that I would say that you have to learn. And then the last thing I could say is focus. Put your focus on each problem, put your focus on each vertical, put your focus on whatever that thing is make sure you're focusing on it and stop trying to do so many things in the business because you can never complete everything successfully. But if you can get one thing focused and you can put that one fire out, then you can go approach the next fire. So focus has been a big driver for me too. So when I know I have a problem, I go attack that full on and then I work on it with all my heart and soul. And then hopefully we can fix it and then hand it off to the next leader and make sure that we're in a good position to be able to take that and move it forward.
Awesome. And it sounds like that's really what you did with your sales team over this past year. And I know I teased a little bit about it in the intro and in the beginning, but let's go into that a little bit since this is the Inside the Sales Playbook show, Jimmy. Let's really get into what was kind of that defining moment from a sales perspective. I know the answer to this, but could you give our listeners some context where you were at, what the pains you were having with a sales perspective, the big pivot that you had to make, and now where you're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2019, I'll kind of tell it as a story because I think it resonates the best this way. So Perfect. Back in 2019, late 2018, we had taken our first fundraising. Until then, we were completely bootstrapped, and we said, well, we're taking this fundraising, and not only were to accelerate this and that, and product, but really to grow the sales team and be able to successfully get out to market and get our name out there and really be able to start creating sales. And so, just like any other kind of green person because I have this big sales experience, and what I didn't recognize right off front was that I didn't have the sales process experience of being able to sell SaaS. I felt that, if I went out and grabbed someone with a great big title and experience, that they're going to be able to come into here and be able to spin up the company and team and everything and be able to do it. And that's exactly what I did. Is I didn't have the time because I was doing so many other things in the business. And I said, well, I don't know. I can sell. I can get on a call and I can sell anybody, but I don't know the process. And let's go hire people. We did. Now, I took the first path of mistake, which was I went to find some people with big logos, names, titles, and under their belt, and that ultimately did not work out. And what I really quickly learned by that point is there's different stages of a sales VP, especially, or a leader into a company, and finding those stages. But what I even found out further was can't rely on someone to define that for you. You've got to actually spend your time to define it. So the story in 2019 was we ramped up. We hired four reps. We hired a partner manager. We hired this VP of sales, and we put him into the business. And we quickly kind of saw them flounder really fast. I mean, from everything from training to just not having defined processes to really not knowing how to go after the market and really not even know how to really explain and sell the product. And, there was a lot of things, and we try to spend a lot of time, and I spent a lot of time trying to help support that with education and teaching them. But ultimately, I quickly learned that from the top, and that's what I realized, it starts from the top always, from the top, and I'm talking about like the sales leader at that time. It wasn't getting driven down the line, right? And it wasn't getting explained. It wasn't getting taught. The numbers, the data wasn't there. One of the things that I think I really picked up as a data-driven marketer already is that you actually use data and sales to be able to really truly understand your sales team and organization. And that's essentially what started to really open up my mind. And I attribute a lot of this stuff to like things like Jason Lemkin over at SaaStr and going through some of the SaaStr training and everything. Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of Jason and the entire org over there. And a lot of the things really started to open my mind up, which helped me kind of start to pivot into numbers and data and really quickly understanding how much of a loss leader the sales department really was at that time. And I couldn't figure out why. And that was the hardest part. It was like, you can't see it if you're not on the ground floor there. You can only see the high numbers, and you can see there's broken pieces, but you couldn't figure out what it came down to. So, in 2019, I started to see that. I think it was about summer of that year. I started to see that kind of occur and happen in the company. And I was kind of looking at it and understanding it. And it really ultimately led to a big decision right at the end of Q3 last year, which was, well, the sales department just isn't working out. I can't figure out why. And, I don't know if it's the leadership. I don't know if it's the people. I don't know what it is. And the reality is, I kind of read back at Lemkin, and I kind of looked at what he said about, your first sales team and everything. And I really quickly resonated with that and figured out that it wasn't working out, and I laid them all off. And, I went from, 6 people, and went down to no one, right? And we got rid of the entire sales organization in the company. And I said, the only way we're going to do this is if I get on the ground floor and I just get beat up and I do it myself. And so that's when it started. So I would say that fun started in October of last year. So almost a year ago now, I started that. And I realized that we just basically had to go on the ground floor and create the process, right? Wow. And so if you want to know how I kind of approached it, I started off and said, look, from now on, I'm a rep. I'm not a manager. I'm a rep. I need to treat my job as a rep. I had one other person that was a rep, and we split leads, and we tracked everything. And I'm talking about everything from every subject line, every body, how we followed up with people, the time it took to close people, the time it took for cadences between each conversation, and we measured it all. And it sounds horrendous in work, but it was, right? You have to, right? We have to touch a lot of leads. Fortunate for us, the big thing that was fortunate for us is that we have a lot of good inbound activity as a company. So we were able to get in front of a lot of leads and so forth, so that we were able to kind of go through it. And I'm sure at the early stages, we blew through a couple leads trying to really figure this out. Yeah. But eventually over time, we started to see that repeatable cycle. We started to define the cadences, know when those touch points need to happen. We were able to kind of design a playbook essentially by basically going through each and every place, looking at the data and trying to get to that place of repeatability. My goal was, I'm not hiring another rep except for myself and this other rep until my second rep or my other rep meets the same numbers that I'm meeting or equivalent to, before I know I can go find another rep and create repeatability there, and then I can go scale. Wow. So it's a patience game. It's really a hard patience game. It's really a tedious game, but it also helps you really define and understand it. So what it helped me do, and I'll tell you some of the cool things that it did really help me do, was talking to a lot of customers or potential customers. As a CEO and a founder, like, it was very enlightening to hear what they really needed versus what I thought they needed from, we do these product interviews, but it's different when you're trying to sell someone to pull out their wallet versus a customer who's already pulled out their wallet. There's a different kind of interaction that I learned really fast. And that was the first thing I learned, which helped me cater the entire demo and the sales process, right? So the demo used to be much more, typical demos, much more feature function, just kind of talking about what it does. And I changed the entire way that we ran demos to a narrative, a story, a way to teach them how it helps them solve more problems, how it gives them more solutions, helps them make ultimately more money for their business, and truly helps them create impact in their business. And so curating a new story, creating a new demo, creating new cadences, down to even defining those sequences in those emails, and really just trying to understand what people work on, right? So that was my first thing, and I had to do it. I had to figure that out. And so we spent 3 months roughly just hammering, going through hundreds of emails, looking at the ones that got the best engagement, testing them over and over again until we started to define what works the best there. Then we had to get into outbound side. And we said, well, now we need to learn outbound. So what do? We went to Built With, bought a list, curated it, cleaned it up, and started hammering the phone. So I remember myself and the other rep, we said back to back, and we just hammered. And we said, we're going to put this thing on the wall, and every time we make a call, we're going to mark it down to make sure that we know we made a call. Every time we book a demo, we're going to mark down how many we booked a demo. Let's figure out our repeatability. How many calls do we need to make one demo? How many demos converted to the sales process, and so forth, right? Wow. And then how did that sales cycle start opening up? So we basically did the BI, the analytics, the sales ops, a little bit of everything. And I think that's the thing that you miss. I think too many people think about lead sale and they don't think about the analytics and the sales ops that comes along with it. If I think about it in a big circle. And I think that people tend to forget those two elements because A, they either had support there, or B, they just don't know unless it was given to them. And I think that's something that I had to really quickly understand, that these two parts were things that we really truly had to understand in order to drive the other two places successful. Because it's data, and data tells the truth in all things. So we spent time doing the outbound side too, right? And proving repeatability, proving that we could tap into 200 leads and find deals out of there, and book demos, and be able to take them through close. And we did it through kind of the hardest time, because we were doing it through December, which is a hard time in the year because everyone's on vacation, but we're successful at it. And we kind of started to figure it out a bit, and that helped me kind of get there going. So then as we kicked into 2020, we started to find, the other rep was making his numbers. I was making our numbers. We're looking really good as a sales team, just us two. And then we brought in our next rep, and that was the next goal, right? And during that learning, what it really taught me was one thing. We don't teach our salespeople enough in the first 30, 60 days. And that's why they're not successful.
Oh, so interesting.
We slowed them down. We slowed down salespeople. No longer do we let a salesperson come in and in a week of training, get it out and hit the floor. It takes you 60 days in our organization to even touch your first lead now.
Wow. So what are they doing during that time? Walk me through, what is that onboarding and training? Because that's a lot of time.
They come in before it. So they start on domain knowledge, not even product knowledge, domain knowledge. What do we do? How do we help them? I actually created this two big giant internal courses. The first one is called Ecom Email Academy. It's a course all about email and e-commerce and how that all works together. It's a 10-hour course. Shot that, awesome. Gave them that. So they learn that. Then they go through our sales playbook training, where we teach them business, we teach them the competitors, we teach them our model, we teach them exactly how to sell the product, exactly what to talk about, objection handling, closing, and we teach them everything. That's another 11-hour course that we shot together.
Wow.
So these are my 2 playbooks that people have to go through. We track and we test them. We make sure that we do it. And then we go into a heavy mock scenario too. And the mock scenario is intense, where we actually go through a heavy mock. We disco 20 calls with them right off front, back to back. Then we go through a sales process of, you come sell me. You got to figure me out, discover me on the call right there, turn into a demo, sell me, and pitch me on the close, right? And then we start going through all that. And we basically learned that you need to put good practice, good education behind each and every sales rep that comes in. And that way, when they hit the floor, they're successful. And what we saw by doing that is essentially all the reps that hit the floor finally are closing deals within the first week. And It's because they come out with confidence, they come out with knowledge, they come out with knowing that you've met not only just me on these mock demos, but we bring in all sorts of people in the company on purpose to give them new faces and uncomfortability so that we can make sure that different reactions are helping them really get into that place, right? So those are some of the things that we started to do. And then we saw success there. And that's when I knew I was ready to bring in that VP of sales. And this time, with the information that I've learned from Jason at SaaStr and reading all the things in the world and internet, working with my coach, who is Brett Fox. I don't know if you've ever seen his name, Papa Boncoro or anything, but he's my coach mentor that I work with a lot. We kind of started to understand, who do I need to bring in? It's not that I don't want to bring in the big name. It's that I need to find a person who understands the stage of the company. You cannot bring in a corporate VP of sales to come in and work in your startup. We've learned that really fast. We knew that we need to take someone with, which is where I was very fortunate to find someone who's done it 5 times and been able to go from our stage into exits, $2 billion exits and so forth. And the guy who gets it, right? And has built these teams and has built things. And, one of the first comments that he came in is like, you guys are tremendously further ahead as a sales process and organization than I've ever seen walking into startup because, and he said it, you're a burn victim. And I always laugh about that. And I'm like, yeah, I was a burn victim. I burned probably $1 million of money because I was trying to successfully ramp the sales team, buy all the expensive tools, the Zoom infos and the navigators and this tool and that tool. Thank God I never spent money in Salesforce at that time, right? But like all the other things that I was spending that money on, and it essentially put me into this place where that I just spent a lot of money. But now in this time, we're starting to see almost not instant ROI, but we're seeing a very fast ramp up. We're seeing a very fast thing. And, our sales guys are making sales, right? And so our outbound team is relatively new. Now we went from in July of this year, we were 2 people, and now we are 8 people in the sales organization. A VP of sales, SDRs, a couple more AEs to join the team, a sales ops person joining in now as well too. So we're now starting to get the team into a good place where we're getting ready to build pipeline and attack 2021 with success. So, it's been an interesting story and, it's been really a painful learning, but I wish I would have learned this a year ago and I would have never hired a sales team. I could have probably spent 6 months to a year figuring this out by myself and probably done it more successfully. So I could have saved myself $1 million. But the reality is I learned by failure. That's just who I am. And so I needed to get burned by the fire, but it'll never happen again because I get it now. And I think what I get is the process and being on the ground floor and doing it, right? And that's the biggest thing, and especially at an earlier stage startup.
Yeah, that education that you got is far exceeds the $1 million that you spent. I mean, that is a skill, that is a piece of information that will never leave you and will be successful in whatever organization. Jimmy, that is just an incredible story. And I know our listeners are going to gain a ton of value from it. I love the fact of how you approach the onboarding and training process. I've talked to many, many companies that are very concerned about, all right, how do we onboard? How do we train? But you are one of the first that I've found that has an actual scalable system of courses of this actual process. So talk to me what you think separates, a good sales team from a great sales team, especially when it comes to that onboarding and training.
I think it's really the domain knowledge. I mean, the first thing that I think the biggest problem that I always see with salespeople and someone who buys products, right? Mm-hmm. If I get on a call and I know your product better than you and you're trying to sell me, I'm not impressed. You know what I mean? The product may be so good that I'm going to buy it. There's always going to be that transactional element. But the reality is that your salespeople should not only know your product better than the other person, they should know their competitors' products better than they are. And that's the biggest thing that we've taught is like, you need to be able to go on and say, company B that I'm face to face with, in their case, it's Clavio, for example, face to face with, why do we win? Why do we lose? And where do we need to pinpoint on? And how much do we know about their platform? To the point when we're talking to the customer on the other end, or the potential customer, they need to feel like, hey, this guy gets it. He gets whatever I'm using now and what I'm going to come to today. And I understand the differences. He's laid out everything. And I think it's transparency, and it's also education, which also at the end positions you as an expert. I think sales executives or account executives don't know how to understand. They need to be coming onto these calls positioned as an expert, not positioned as the guy who's giving you the demo. There's a difference there. And so even the sales process for us, we don't follow the traditional enterprise sales method. Typically you get on the disco call, then you get on the sales call, then a sales engineer call. We do everything in one call.
Really? How long do those calls last? An hour. 1 hour calls.
Disco, qualifying, yes, roll right into a demo, go into it, ask for the close. Most sales calls for us right now take 1 to 2 calls max, right? They run about 9.5 days on life cycle right now on an inbound lead. Obviously, outbound, we're still to be determined, but 9.5 days on there. And we're turning an ACV about $8,500. So it's not a small deal.
Wow, that's incredible. And you're getting that return within a couple of days. That's unreal.
Yeah. So it's doable if you just understand it, and you understand that it doesn't matter what your product does, but what do you do for the customer? What do you solve for the customers? Have you identified their pain points? And do you understand how those pain points are solvable by your platform to help them achieve their goal, right? If you can't figure those things out, everything else doesn't sell. That's the thing that sells, creates the stickier customer, and creates someone who comes in knowing that you as a company have humanized experience, that you are now coming to solve their problems, not to show them a bunch of cool features that you have. I've quickly learned that features are great and they're great for selling, but they're truly not what sells a platform. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't care what our competition differentiation is. I don't care what you say, how special your product is, unless you're really just far in the sky away from everybody. Reality is you're competitive to everybody else. And what you have to do is figure out what is their actual use cases and pain points, and how am I actually solving them? And that truly is how we make our reps think about it. So they're not platform demoers. They're problem solvers that understand, due to their domain experience and their education and expertise, they come on as a trusted consultant, not as a salesperson. And I think that's the difference. There's nothing worse that bothers me when I get on a sales call and they run me down the product, left, right. That's great. Yeah. I didn't need that from you. I didn't need that from you. I need you to tell me, ask me the right questions so I can tell you what my problem is, so I can solve it for you. And I think that's what makes a great sales executive.
Love that. Jimmy, so many just knowledge bombs dropped throughout these past couple of minutes. I absolutely love this. I think there's so many founders here that can learn from your story. And I love how you went back into the trenches. That is really, really incredible. Well, let's close here with the final 5. Okay, Jimmy, these are 5 rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask them. You answer them. Are you ready?
Sure. Go for
awesome.
it.
All right, let's start with your favorite sales related movie.
Ooh, God. I don't know. I love the Wolf of Wall Street still to this day. I mean, it's not truly sales related, but it is kind of. Yeah. I just love the energy of what a sales team that's performing can look like, and that reminds me and takes me back to my car days.
Yep, I believe it. All right, favorite sales book.
Whew. God, I don't think I have a great favorite sales book. I can't say that I would pinpoint one. I think it's a collection of them.
Okay, give me one of them that's had a real impact on you in the past 60 days.
In the past 60 days, I'm not in a sales book. Look, I'm looking at my shelf right now. What would I say that I would say that I've really, in the last 60 days, I don't have a good sales book. I would say if I'm going back, man, that's I'm gonna leave blank on there.
Okay, we'll leave blank on that one. The first time Jason Lemkin, you said. All right, yeah, we'll link to him. It sounds like you really used a lot of his.
Yeah, content. I mean, dude, there's so much great free information out there and information. But yeah, SaaStr, if you're not part of any of the SaaStr stuff, there's so much good free stuff in there. You should be. So
awesome. Well, we'll make sure we link to that. What do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got into sales and started slinging cars back in the day?
What I wish I knew. I wish I understood the difference about what's the best way. I wish I was able to understand that product is not what you sell with. It's the rapport, the person of people, a lot more than just product. Even when I go back to sales, when I first started selling cars, I remember my manager used to be like, it's great. They came here. They already know about the car. You just need to make them love you, right?
Yeah.
And that's some of the things that you have to really learn is that rapport building. And I think that's something that's always continuously evolving inside of me.
I love that. I think that's great. Jimmy, what's your favorite purchase of 2020 under $100?
My foot massager that's under my desk.
And are you using it right now?
Absolutely, actually.
Wow, that is a pro varsity level move right there. And give me your favorite social media follow.
I guess LinkedIn right now is where I'm mostly spending time right now, just because it's much more on the professional level. A little fluffy these days, but it's good. Between that and Twitter is where I spend my time.
Is there anybody in particular that you're following that you really like?
On Twitter, not on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I like a lot of these sales professionals. There's a couple of them out there, sales and marketing professionals. Look, I'll lean on Jason right now because that's who I would give thanks to a lot of my learnings this last year. So I'll leave him on the book there for now.
Awesome. Let's do that. Jimmy, where can our listeners connect with you if they so choose to?
Generally, LinkedIn or Twitter. Those are my two places that I spend time.
All right. I'll make sure to link to those as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mr. Jimmy with Send Lane. Jimmy, thanks so much for having us on the Inside the Sales Playbook. Awesome interview. Tons of knowledge dropped today. Can't wait for the listeners to hear it.
Awesome. Thank you for having me as well, too. Glad I can hopefully share some information to the world and hopefully someone picks something out of this. And if you're in that struggle and experiencing it, and hopefully my words have given you the confidence that it does end. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That's the number one thing that I'll say. There is a light. It takes a little bit of time, but you signed up to be a founder to deal with all this crap, and I hope you can figure it out. So that's basically my closing words, I guess I can tell.
I love that. Yeah, you got to go towards that light. That light's not going to come to you. You got to actually go towards it. Jimmy, awesome conversation. Thanks so much for being on Inside the Sales Playbook Show.
Thank you.